My sister demanded I stop wearing makeup at family events because it makes her feel less important, so I showed up barefaced at her wedding. My sister, Emma, and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, the one everyone doted on. She was charming, beautiful, and always seemed to get her way. I, on the other hand, was quieter and preferred to stay out of the spotlight. I've always enjoyed expressing myself through makeup. It's not just about looking good, it's about feeling confident and showcasing my creativity. But Emma saw it differently. It all started about a year ago at a family dinner. I showed up wearing a simple but polished look, foundation, eyeliner, a bit of eyeshadow, and lipstick. Nothing over the top, just my usual style. Emma's reaction was immediate. She rolled her eyes and made a snide comment under her breath about me, trying too hard. I brushed it off, but as the evening went on, she became more vocal. At one point, she said loudly, "Do you always have to look like you're going to a photo shoot? This is just a family dinner, not a red carpet." I laughed it off, but I could feel the tension. My parents didn't say much, as usual, but I noticed them exchange glances. After dinner, Emma pulled me aside and said, "You know, you don't have to wear makeup all the time. It's not like anyone cares." I told her that I enjoyed wearing makeup and that it made me feel good about myself. She huffed and walked away, but that was just the beginning. Over the next few months, Emma's comments about my makeup became more frequent and pointed. Every family gathering turned into an opportunity for her to criticize me. "You're so fake," she'd say. Or, "You must spend hours doing that. Don't you have better things to do?" It came to a head last Thanksgiving. I had done a soft glam look, nothing flashy, just something that made me feel put together. Emma was visibly annoyed. Halfway through dinner, she blurted out, "Why do you always have to make everything about you? Can't you just tone it down for once?" Everyone went silent. I was mortified. I asked her what she meant, and she said, "You know exactly what I mean. You show up to these things looking like a beauty queen, and it makes the rest of us feel less important." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her that my makeup wasn't about her or anyone else. It was for me. She scoffed and said, "Well, it's selfish. Maybe think about how you're making others feel." After that, I decided I'd had enough. I started avoiding family events unless absolutely necessary. I didn't want to deal with Emma's negativity. My parents noticed but didn't push me for an explanation. They've always been conflict avoidant, especially when it comes to Emma. Then came the announcement of Emma's wedding. She called me one evening, and after a few minutes of small talk, she dropped the bombshell. "I want to talk to you about your makeup," she said. "For the wedding, I need you to not wear any." I was stunned. "Excuse me?" "It's my day," she said, as if that explained everything. "I don't want you drawing attention away from me. I want everything to be perfect, and that includes everyone fitting the vibe I'm going for. Natural and understated. So, no makeup." I told her I'd think about it, but honestly, I was furious. Her request wasn't about fitting the vibe. It was about her insecurities and her need to control everything. I debated not going at all, but I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking she'd pushed me away completely. The day of the wedding, I decided to honor her request, but not in the way she expected. I showed up completely barefaced. No foundation, no mascara, nothing. I wore my hair in a simple ponytail and chose a plain dress that fit the vibe she wanted. When I arrived at the venue, Emma's reaction was priceless. She looked me up and down and said, "Wow, you actually listened." "Of course," I replied. "It's your day." Throughout the ceremony and reception, I could feel people glancing at me. A few relatives even asked if I was feeling okay. "You look so different," one of them said. "I almost didn't recognize you." Emma, however, was in her element. She was the center of attention, just as she'd always wanted. But as the night went on, I started noticing something interesting. People began asking her why I looked so different. When she explained that she'd asked me not to wear makeup, the reactions weren't what she'd expected. "Why would you do that?" one of our cousins asked. "She always looks so nice with her makeup. It's kind of weird to ask her not to." Emma tried to laugh it off, but the comments kept coming. Even her new husband looked uncomfortable when someone brought it up. By the end of the night, Emma was visibly annoyed. As I was getting ready to leave, she pulled me aside and hissed, "You did this on purpose." "Did what?" I asked, genuinely confused. "You made me look bad," she snapped. "Everyone's talking about how weird it is that you're not wearing makeup. You knew this would happen." I told her that I had simply followed her request. If people found it strange, that was on her, not me. She glared at me and stormed off. The fallout from the wedding was immediate. Emma called me a few days later and accused me of ruining her big day. She claimed that my barefaced look had distracted people and taken attention away from her. I told her that if she wanted me to look a certain way, she should have specified that up front. "You can't control how people react," I said. Our relationship, already strained, has been virtually non-existent since then. My parents tried to mediate, but I refused to apologize. I'm done bending over backward to accommodate Emma's insecurities. If she can't handle the consequences of her own actions, that's her problem, not mine. Looking back, I don't regret a thing. If anything, the experience taught me an important lesson: some people will never be satisfied, no matter how much you try to please them. And that's okay. I'd rather be true to myself than live my life trying to meet someone else's impossible expectations. Reflecting on my childhood, it's clear that Emma's behavior didn't come out of nowhere. She's always had a need to be the center of attention, and our parents' favoritism only fed into that. I remember one Christmas when I was about 10. I'd spent weeks saving up to buy a small gift for Emma, a bracelet I thought she'd like. When she opened it, she barely glanced at it before tossing it aside and saying, "Thanks, I guess." Our parents didn't say a word. They were too busy praising the expensive necklace Emma had received from them. These patterns continued into adulthood. When Emma graduated from college, our parents threw her a lavish party and invited everyone we knew. When I graduated a year later, I got a small dinner at home. It wasn't that I needed a big celebration, but the disparity was hard to ignore. Emma's accomplishments were always treated as more significant, more worthy of attention. Even in our social lives, Emma's need for control and validation was evident. She'd often insert herself into my friendships, turning my friends into her admirers. If I ever confronted her about it, she'd act like I was being ridiculous. "I can't help it if people like me," she'd say with a smirk. When I started dating my now boyfriend, Jake, Emma's behavior took a new turn. She'd make subtle digs at me in front of him, questioning my decisions or teasing me about trivial things. Once, she even tried to set him up with one of her friends, claiming it was just a joke. Jake saw through her antics and assured me that he was only interested in me, but the incident was a stark reminder of Emma's manipulative tendencies. As the years went by, I learned to set boundaries with Emma, but it was never easy. She'd push and push, testing my limits, and when I finally stood up for myself, she'd play the victim. Our parents' refusal to address her behavior only made things worse. They'd always find a way to excuse her actions, saying things like, "That's just how Emma is," or "She doesn't mean any harm." The wedding incident was the breaking point, but it wasn't the first.